I'm joined now by All Rise News' Adam Klasfeld. Adam, it looks like we have a final resolution here to one of the most high-profile cases of the entire Trump second term. Can you explain what just happened in court?
What happened is a federal judge just ordered the release of Kilmar Abrego Garcia from immigration detention, found that he was held without authority for the last roughly 4 months when he was picked up after being released from pretrial criminal detention for immigration purposes, but they were doing it, according to the judge, quote, without authority because there was no final order of removal.
What kind of recourse is there? I mean, it sounds like to some degree this is like false imprisonment. And so if the government's been holding you wrongly for months and months and months, does he have any recourse here? I know that the focus has always been that he's had to take a defensive posture, but is there any offensive posture he can take by virtue of kind of the abuse that he suffered at the hands of this administration?
Well, one sort of bank shot recourse that's already underway is in his criminal proceedings, because remember, he's fighting on two fronts here. He had the habeas corpus side of things, where he was held in immigration custody, where the government claimed that it was trying to deport him, and we'll get back to it later why I say claimed. And he was fighting his criminal charges. Now, the criminal case is pending a major reckoning on vindictive prosecution. And he is saying that his treatment in immigration detention and everything that followed it was purely vindictive. At core, this whole fight began was after Kilmar Abrego Garcia won his right to pretrial release on the smuggling charges. After he was released, the government gave him two options: plead guilty before you're let free, and we will let you go to Costa Rica, or you can go and fight this at trial, and we'll try to send you to Uganda. This is one of the bases for his vindictive prosecution motion. You can't hang over a criminal defendant the prospect of going to a human rights abusing country unless you plead guilty and go to, instead, a human rights respecting country.
Right. In terms of the likelihood of compliance from this administration, where do you put that?
I think that we're going to find out very, very soon, Brian, because this order was for Kilmar Abrego Garcia's immediate release. And the judge ordered the government to report to her about the status of his whereabouts by 5 p.m. Eastern time. So the order could not have been more clear, and if the government were to defy it, this can escalate very quickly. We could be talking about contempt proceedings, but we'll see. Remember, there was this question after Kilmar Abrego Garcia, in the criminal context, was ordered released from criminal pretrial detention. The big question was, will the Trump DOJ follow the order? They ultimately did, looking for a backhand escape route in the immigration context.
Is there any way that Kilmar Abrego Garcia being granted habeas here by virtue of Judge Sini's in the trial court, that could be rescinded if an appeals court overturns this ruling, or is this final?
Well, we will see what the Trump administration does next. I think that the DOJ is likely to appeal this. But the basis of the ruling, just to give folks a history of where this was, she gave the government chance after chance after chance. First, they said they're going to send Kilmar Abrego Garcia to Uganda. Then they said Eswatini. Then they said Ghana and Liberia. The first three countries said, we never said we'd accept Abrego. The fourth country said, we never promised that we won't send him right back to El Salvador, where a U.S. court order blocks his release. Then Judge Zinis scrutinized the order and said, there is no final order of deportation. Then there's another wrinkle here. I'd mentioned Costa Rica earlier. The government claimed, and this was a major part of Zinis's ruling, that Costa Rica changed its mind. They'd no longer accept Abrego. But the Washington Post exposed that as a lie. You had a top official from the Costa Rican government saying he is welcome in our country. And I'm just going to read a portion of this ruling because it's very important, where she said that the DOJ, quote, affirmatively misled the tribunal They announced that Liberia was the only viable removal option because Costa Rica does not wish to receive him, and that Costa Rica will no longer accept the transfer of him. But Costa Rica had never wavered in its commitment to receive Abrego Garcia, just as Abrego Garcia never wavered in its commitment to resettle there. So I just want to unpack that because it goes to the question of what might happen in an appeal. I think that Abrego's lawyers would rightly argue, hey, we agreed. We would not dispute any attempt to resettle Abrego in Costa Rica. And you're saying he's a dangerous criminal. You're saying that you're trying to deport him. Why, other than vindictiveness, wouldn't you accept the offer to go to a place where he does not fear persecution? He doesn't fear the violation of his human rights, and he doesn't fear being sent right back to the place where a court has blocked his being sent to, which is El Salvador.
Adam, can this be worth it for this administration to have to expend so many resources over one person who they want to deport? And kind of as a follow-up to that, why then is this administration recognizing that they have limited resources, recognizing that this case surrounding Kilmar Abrego Garcia has been nothing but a headache for them, and frankly, an uphill battle in terms of the legality of this thing? Why are they so hell-bent on trying to force him to be the example that they make?
I think that Abrego is a canary in the coal mine here, that they think if they can whisk away a person in the dead of night, hustle him onto a plane, and in defiance of a court order, send him to a place that was described by a federal judge as one of the most dangerous prisons in the Western Hemisphere, and they can do it without recourse. They can do it to anyone else, and it's a power grab. Now, one of the reasons I keep pointing out this whole Costa Rica wrinkle of it is I think there's a campaign of vilification. I wouldn't be surprised in the least if the DHS and the DOJ and Trump himself went out and said, look at these radical judges not letting us deal with criminals.
Right.
Assume that someone watching this right now, someone in your life, a parent, a family member, a friend, believes that Kilmar Abrego Garcia is dangerous, even though he hasn't had a trial, even though any allegations against him haven't been tested. Then why won't the Trump DOJ and Trump DHS allow him to be deported as his own attorneys have agreed to?
Now, you had mentioned the prospect of contempt in the event that the administration doesn't follow through with this order. Again, we'll know by 5 o'clock Eastern today, Thursday, December 11th, whether or not the administration has opted to comply. What does contempt look like in the event that the administration opts not to comply? And is there that much of a risk, recognizing that worst case scenario, Trump can still, offer up a pardon? We know that the pardon power is plenary, and if he wants this, if this is something that's important to him, then he can always, we've seen the extent to which he can always find some lackey willing to do his bidding for him.
Right. Well, in this instance, Judge Zinis has opted for a civil contempt option. She hasn't moved forward with it yet. She has kind of dangled forward that possibility in response to other parts of it. So I want to make one thing clear. There's a possibility of sanctions over defiance of court orders, regardless of whether the government complies with this order, because of the government's conduct throughout this litigation. Yeah. Judge Zinis has had 2 separate habeas cases. Several times she has ordered the government to produce a witness with knowledge of the facts that she's trying to uncover. And every single time the government brings forward a witness who knows nothing. So I think the kind of Chekhov gun that you see is introduced in Act 1 goes off in Act 3. That could be the sanctions proceedings that have been discussed in the past here. And since they're civil sanctions, they go beyond the pardon power. This is a different type of penalty and a different type of punishment, different process.
Is there any personal liability shouldered by an attorney who decides to do the corrupt bidding of Donald Trump and kind of ignore any orders or rulings handed down by a judge. Like we have seen the extent to which a lot of these attorneys who act on Trump's behalf put their own law licenses in peril. A number of attorneys who Trump has employed in the past have lost their livelihoods as a result of blindly following his orders. And so could that be on the table in this instance?
Well, I want to reread the line that I read a little bit earlier. They affirmatively misled the tribunal. Those are powerful words by Judge Zines, because candor to the tribunal is an ethical obligation that attorneys have. We will see what comes of it. And the background of that was that one of the government officials had attested in a sworn declaration that was under seal that the Costa Rica option was no longer on the table. Lo and behold, blockbuster Washington Post story finds that Costa Rican government officials said nothing had changed. So misleading the tribunal can come with consequences. We'll see whether it happens in this option, but in this particular case. But as we've spoken about a number of times, Brian, we've seen all throughout the aftermath of the 2020 election, the consequences for Trump attorneys that try to go along with behavior that winds up being sanctionable or able to be disciplined or leading to potential disbarment.
Finally, let's finish off with this. I understand that the administration views Kilmar Abrego Garcia as the example that they want to set. And so they're going extra hard against him because if they can take him down, if they can show total dominance over this guy, it'll be basically representative of the broader immigration population that they want to target. And so my question here is, in your best estimation, do you think that there's a world in which the administration relents as it relates to Kilmar Abrego Garcia in the event that he's successful, not just in this case, which it seems like he will be, but also in the ongoing criminal prosecution that he's contending with? Is there a world where, he is successful in court and they wash their hands of him, or are they just so hell-bent on making him the example that nothing will stop them from focusing on this person to the ends of the earth?
I think that the Trump DOJ in this case and DHS have shown themselves to be relentless. But who's also shown themselves to be relentless is Kilmar Abrego Garcia and his lawyers, who have fought every step of the way, all the way up to the Supreme Court, to win his release from an El Salvador prison, getting him back to the United States, and when he was criminally prosecuted, winning his pretrial release, and after he's put into immigration detention, fighting long and hard for an order for his immigration detention release, and it's coming to a vindictive prosecution motion. I do not expect the Trump administration to relent in any way, but I do not expect Kilmar Abrego Garcia and his defense team to relent either.
All right, well, obviously a lot to continue to happen on this case as things are very quickly moving. For those who want to support Adam's work, and this is true, fearless, independent journalism, I'm going to put the link to All Rise News right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. Again, if you're looking to support fearless, independent journalism, that is an excellent outlet that I use on a daily basis. So again, that link is right here on the screen. I'm also going to put the link to this channel on the screen as well. If you haven't yet subscribed to both, please go ahead and subscribe. Adam, thanks so much as always for the time.
Thank you for having me, Brian.